Hey superheroes, my name is Posse the Superhero, also known as the Superhero Guide, and today we're going to be talking about how our feelings help us get what we desire. So, nervous system regulation, I feel like has kind of been a buzzword recently, and nervous system regulation is important for a number of reasons. One, making decisions from a regulated place allows one to be more in alignment. Two, I feel like it genuinely enhances quality of life because you're able to experience a fuller spectrum of feelings and still return to a grounded baseline. So, today, what I want to touch on is the idea that crashing out or displaying intense feelings, feeling intense feelings, somehow derails us from what we want when it's actually quite the opposite. So now I'm going to segue into talking about feelings as friends because they really are our friends. They come in, they tell us important things that we need to know about ourselves, about how we're interpreting, experiencing, and perceiving the things around us. And then once we let them speak, they eventually leave. And that goes for all feelings, whether they're positive or negative. But I'd actually like to touch on that part because in our society, we label things in order to categorize them for easier meaning, easier knowing. But feelings are not really negative or positive. Also, the experience of negative and positive is entirely subjective. What somebody else may experience as positive could be negative for someone else, and vice versa. So, something that I'm really big on is allowing feelings to just be. And if we're going to label them as anything, we can just label them as neutral. So now let's transition to the idea of feeling those intense feelings crashing out and how that relates to receiving a desire. So one could also say that desire is a feeling. One could also say that receiving a desire is a feeling, which brings me to my core point. Everything in this life is a feeling. If you are experiencing something, you are only experiencing it because you are feeling the experience. Somebody who feels absolutely nothing towards someone, I feel like it could be argued that they're not even experiencing it. Because an experience is based on the senses. It's based on touch, smell, hearing, taste. I think I'm missing one. But the point is, even if all of those senses are not engaged, some of them are. So if you are completely devoid of any of those senses, you're not really experiencing it. So now let's talk about crashing out, because I feel like crashing out also has a negative connotation. But I get it, because crashing, that's intense. That's assuming some sort of friction, bumping. But I like to think of friction like this. Sandpaper causes friction before it smooths things out, you know? Also in this moment, I'd like to bring in the ideas shared by Abraham Hicks, where contrast, friction, crashing out, step one, leads us to being more specific about our preferences. The more specific we are about our preferences, the more full the experience of receiving that desire. We're here to specify. That's essentially what we're here for. We're here to specify what we want by identifying what we don't want. Good cannot be good without bad. One cannot know itself without knowing what it isn't. So while contrast, while intense feelings, while these situations that lead one to crashing out may not always feel the best, they are leading us to the best because you are identifying what you want in that crash out, in those intense feelings. So now I want to talk about actually feeling the feelings, because once we've accepted that, okay, if I am experiencing wanting to crash out, if I'm feeling these intense feelings because something is happening that I do not like, if we know that, okay, if I don't like this, I can decide that I like this, and that will lead to you knowing more of what you do like. Okay, we've accepted that part. Something that I talk to my clients about and also talk to myself about is the idea that it doesn't really make the contrast any more comfortable. I feel like over time, returning to the idea that this is leading me to know more of what I do want can be comforting and grounding. The point is, those feelings such as anger, sadness, grief, shame, they're still knocking at the door wanting to speak to you. It's not like they will just be like, well, you know what? They're not answering, so let me just go away. Most of the time, they just knock harder on the door. I saw this quote on Pinterest, and I'm sure many other people have said it as well, that the only way through it is through it. I mentioned this at the beginning of this video, but our feelings are our friends. They have very important, valuable pieces of information to give us. One could even say that they come bearing gifts. And one could be asking, what type of gifts are we talking about? And that is such a valid question. Think about it like this. If you are in a situation that is making you feel angry, maybe you're feeling angry because somebody overstepped. That just tells you that a boundary needs to be put into place. But if you didn't experience that anger, how would you know that a boundary needs to be put into place? Mindfulness also allows for one to experience what the feelings are wanting to tell us without identifying with them. Because when I say they are our friends, they're not us. If anger comes knocking at my door, that doesn't mean I am angry, but that means I'm feeling the experience of anger because it's in my house and it has some things that it wants to tell me. So how this relates to how your feelings allow you to receive your desires is because, one, it allows you to be more specific about what you want, but also sometimes something has to break apart, crack open to let more in. Sometimes you are one crash out away from receiving everything you desire. Because even in the thick of it, even in the mix of all that intensity, you are still setting specifics. You are still identifying what you want, even if you don't say it. By feeling deeply what you don't want, there is a part of you, even if it feels like a small part at the time, that is identifying what you do want. Lastly, I feel that the reason why our feelings allow us to receive what we desire is because feeling is the whole point. And this returns me back to what I was saying at the beginning of this. We came here to experience material, spirituality, nature, people. Everything has no meaning, no value if we are not experiencing it. And those feelings allow us to experience. Even me, sometimes I'll ask myself, did I have to experience that so intensely to know what it means now, to know what I want from it? But then I also return to the idea that being human is to experience the full spectrum. It's to allow yourself to ebb in and out of every place that your feeling is trying to take you. Feeling is incredibly human. Flowers feel the sun. That's something that they just do. And they still grow, they still die, they still do what flowers do. Our feelings do not dictate what we receive. Feelings is just part of the fun. If all we did as human beings was receive, 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 how would we know what it feels like to not receive? Therefore, what meaning would we take from receiving if we don't know what it's like to not receive? The only reason why receiving abundance, receiving these things we want, feels so good is because we know what it's like to not receive. And I won't even say that. More so that human beings are so intelligent that we can shift our awareness to what it feels like to not receive, even though we are receiving what we want all the time. And that's a different conversation for another day. But what I want to end with is feel yourself, be yourself. Feel your feelings in its complete entirety. Feel your feelings authentically, because they are actually leading you exactly where you want to go. Feel your feelings freely and trust that all of this is just fun. All of this it's like a movie where sometimes you know that the movie is going to end well because maybe you read the background of the movie, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to cry during the movie. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get upset at some of the characters. Just enjoy the movie. You know what I mean? Like, if you know you're going to end up where you desire, you can just enjoy everything that comes along the way. And sometimes those experiences are heavier. Sometimes those feelings are heavier than others. But all in all, that is part of the experience of being a human. Also being a superhero. So I thank you for joining me today. And always know that if you are here today, you are a superhero, because choosing to grow, be yourself, know more about yourself, sends positive ripples out towards everything and everyone around you. And that is a superhero level service. So thank you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.